Yellow guys, how are you doing? My name is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and welcome back. So if you've been following any Nintendo news over the past couple of days, you know one of the biggest announcements we have been waiting for finally happened, which is some version of one of the many Dark Souls games has finally been confirmed to be coming to the Switch, and that is of course the first Dark Souls. Dark Souls Remastered was showcased at the end of the Nintendo Direct Mini last week, and it's interesting because that's a game and a series that had been rumored to be coming to the Switch since literally even before the console launched. So this has been waiting in the wings for months upon months, almost a year actually. And if you know me, you know that I am a huge Dark Souls fan, a huge Bloodborne fan, a massive fan of everything From Software has been doing the past almost decade. So to get a game like this coming to a Nintendo console, and for that Nintendo console to be the Switch with its handheld portable nature, oh my gosh, it is so freaking cool. So as a huge Nintendo fan and a huge Dark Souls fan, I thought I would take the opportunity to spend a couple of minutes talking to you guys about Dark Souls Remastered and why it's really exciting, and if we can expect this to be a fairly sizable hit on the Switch, because this is one of the many games that represents some of the improving situations with Nintendo, where we're seeing more third-party games start to come to the Switch, as well as third-party content that's also fairly mature. Because with games like Doom and LA Noire and Resident Evil finally showing up on the Nintendo console again, even though, yes, we have had Resident Evil in the past, but still, with a lot of what's been going on, we know Wolfenstein is coming, now of course Dark Souls Remastered, we're seeing a lot of the really kind of mature quality third-party content that we feel Nintendo has been missing for a while, and it's really great to see. And Dark Souls specifically is fascinating, not just because it is one of the absolute best series in gaming, I promise you that, it is so freaking good, but also because it's never ever ever been on a Nintendo console. So a lot of the Nintendo-only audience that might have been playing only or primarily on Nintendo consoles for the last however many years or generations or decades might not have ever had a chance to get their hands on one of these From Software action games. Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, it might have eluded a lot of the Nintendo audience. Even though, yes, many Nintendo gamers, of course, very smartly own other consoles as well, but sometimes that doesn't happen, and people might be gaming only on Nintendo products, whether by choice or just because financially they can't afford any other console, and that's totally fine. I mean, those things happen. So I'm very excited for the Nintendo-only audience to get their hands on Dark Souls and give it a shot, but I'm also a little bit nervous because, man, these games have a reputation, and the reputation is legit, you guys. I mean, these games are hard in such a specific way, and I definitely have faith in most hardcore gamers to be able to pick it up and adjust, but I also think a lot of people might not be able to, and that's going to be the really interesting thing to see play out, because I can imagine, and I'm just guessing here, I'm not trying to put words or thoughts into anyone's head, but I'm guessing that a lot of Nintendo-only gamers and people who might have skipped these series in the past might be thinking, oh, great, I have my Switch, I love my Switch, and I love Nintendo, and finally one of these games is coming to my favorite console that I happen to own, so now I can't wait to finally give it a shot and see what all the fuss is about. And again, I'm very excited for people to try it, but these games really will push you to your limits because they very specifically craft gameplay mechanics and survival techniques that absolutely go against the grain of literally every other game in the modern era. They do not let go. You need perfect timing, you need an insane level of dodge ability, there's a rhythm and a cadence to the gameplay that cannot be understated. It is so important for people to be able to get into this, not to mention it punishes you by not a lot of checkpoints, continually asking you to play things over and over again and to get better and better. That's where the whole quote get good thing comes from, because, and this is actually one of my favorite things about the series, and I think one of its strengths, is that it provides to the player, no matter how experienced or inexperienced, it provides to the player everything they need to acquire the skills they need to get through the game as well as possible. It's not like the game is ever necessarily cheap, although people might think it is. They really provide you the tools to say, hey, hone your craft and just get better at the skill set we provide to you. You pick from the tools that we give you to make your skills and to make those better, and no matter how hard the game or the enemies or the bosses ever get, if you just practice, you will get better. It's not like other games that might be difficult in a way where it's just hard to make a certain jump or it's hard because it's unfair. It's literally practice. The same way you practice playing basketball, the same way you practice playing an instrument or practice singing or dancing, the more you do it, the better you get. And not a lot of games actually have that down pat the way the From Software games do. And people who haven't played it might be hearing this thinking, oh, that's just nonsense. It's whatever. That's just any other game. I promise you guys, it is so very different than that and so unique to the Dark Souls games. And so, you know, some people might be thinking, oh, I can play hard games. It's cool. And it's like, no. These games are different. They're hard in a different way, and they don't give you, like, invincibility after you get hit, and just, I mean, myriad things. Just so many things. So I'm really curious to see how the Nintendo-only audience is going to respond to it. Again, knowing that I'm sure many other Nintendo and Switch fans probably have played these games before and do know what they get into. But again, I'm only thinking about the people who might never have played it or touched them, and excited to give them a shot, but I just hope that, you know, they don't get turned off. There's also the conversation of how the game is going to perform and how it's going to run on the Switch. There has been some really garbagey clickbait stuff out there. I even made a post about it on Twitter earlier today about people and articles and websites and YouTubers trying to state, oh, it's going to be garbage. You know, they confirmed that it's only 30 frames per second on Switch and 60 on the other consoles, so it's obviously going to be bad. The Switch is garbage and it can't run this game and it's just going to be a mess on the Switch. And you guys, there's no way that that is going to be the case. Dark Souls is an incredibly old game. I should know off the top of my head what year it came out, but I'm going to guess sometime around 2010 or so. That is just ballpark. I don't even know. But it's many years old. There's been several games since the first Dark Souls came out, and there are far more impressive and more modern games running on the Switch fantastically, that there's no reason to think that Dark Souls is not going to run well. Look at Doom. That is a current modern-gen Xbox One and PlayStation 4 amazingly impressive game visually that is running spectacularly on the Switch. Sure, the Switch version doesn't look as good as its competitors, but that doesn't mean it doesn't look amazingly impressive in its own right, and that game visually is like 3 times the game the first Dark Souls is. Dark Souls has a better art direction, but in terms of like the actual graphics and the textures and the polygon count and the lighting and all these things, Doom is far more advanced, and they are remastering Dark Souls, and it's going to have more improved lighting and all that good stuff, so it will look better. But you guys, this game is going to run fantastically. And they even confirmed it is still 1080p and a locked 30 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch. And if they were struggling to get this game to run, you think they would bump it up to 1080? No, they're bumping it up to 1080 because they can comfortably do so. And these games notoriously run at 30 frames per second or less, and I'm sure it's going to be locked 30 frames per second on the Switch, which will make it the far more better experience than the original release of the first Dark Souls. Yes, it's going to look and run a little bit better on the competing consoles. What are you going to do with the Switch? You get portable, and I think that that's going to be totally cool. So I just don't think anyone needs to lose their mind about how Dark Souls is going to run on the Switch. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that's about all I have to say on that. I just really wanted to gush about Dark Souls for a minute. The fact that it's coming to the Switch for the first time ever, we're getting portable Dark Souls. Really fantastic to see this game coming to Switch alongside of the PS4 and Xbox One. Same day and date. This is part of the improving third-party nature that we're seeing with this modern Switch-age Nintendo, and it's a really beautiful thing to see. So what do you guys think? Do you think that Dark Souls is going to be a big hit on the Switch? Do you think it will sell well? Do you think people will receive it well? Do you think that it's going to run well? Or do you think that maybe none of those things are true? And it's not going to sell, and people are going to hate it, and it's going to run like garbage, and it's just going to be a big, miserable failure. I obviously don't think so, but I want to hear from you guys. So that is it for me today. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.